Okay, up next, it's happened to the best of us. It's a total CX disaster. Now what? So to assist me with this topic, we have two speakers. First up is Reagan Miller, who's head of global analytics at Concentrix.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm Reagan Miller. So it started off as a dream. And you were there, and you were there. But what started the dream was actually a very real event, or a tornado, or as we like to call them where I'm from, which you can find out in just a second, we call them a twister. So I live in Texas, in case you couldn't guess from my fake Texas accent just a second ago. We're at the end of what's called Tornado Alley, and in San Antonio, kind of at the bottom of it. And we know that tornadoes are coming every single year when they come. We know it's going to happen. We prepare for it. We sort of get ready, and we also know why they happen. They happen because there's a very particular sort of atmospheric set of conditions that take place that cause tornadoes. In fact, this year there have been over 1,000 tornadoes in the United States alone, and most of them have happened in my backyard. And while they can be one of the absolutely most beautiful things in all of nature, they can absolutely be one of the most devastating as well. 100 years ago, when we wanted to find out if a tornado was coming, you had to either hear it, or perhaps even you had to see it. My grandfather, who was also raised in Texas in the 1930s, tells a story of a tornado coming and it sounding like a freight train, and that's how they knew it was coming. They ran in the storm shelter, just like you see in the movies, right? And in fact, it would sort of just hit, as they would say. But now it's a very different story. Today, we can actually see tornadoes coming. And how is that? It's with data. Data that gives us vision and perspective and contrast, comparison, location, precision, and integration. But getting that data has actually been very difficult, been very expensive, high degree of difficulty for getting data that allows us to see these things. And you have to get all sorts of different kinds of data as well. And if you think about some of the stuff we consider to be very basic, which is maps. We've had maps for a long time, of course, but now, we all have maps where? Right here. And so maps has become something that's been very basic, but if you go back 30 or 40 years ago, the kind of map conditions that existed and the technology to get that didn't really exist. So we've gone from seeing tornadoes on a farm to predicting tornadoes from a very different kind of farm. So how does all this relate to our world of customer experience? Being in the middle of a customer experience disaster, raise your hand if you've been in one of those. Yep, plenty of hands going around. If you didn't raise your hand, you're not telling the truth. You haven't been doing this for more than about 60 days. It feels like we're in a tornado, right? And the effects of a CX disaster can be just as devastating. In fact, it can make us, feel like we're in Oz, right? And that's not if we're, the gentleman from the company who was speaking earlier can send you to Oz, right? I think they can deliver something to your doorstep to get you there, right? That's cool. Or Jupiter, I think he said. But in a CX disaster, you can feel like you're completely disoriented. You're in a place where you don't recognize anybody. The terrain is extremely unfamiliar. Maybe it's in Technicolor, right? And in fact, you might even need a yellow brick road to find your way around. And you might even have to get a hot air balloon to get your way out of it. But today, you don't need an angry mob of people beating down your door at a brick and mortar store in order to be having a CX disaster. We all know that we're probably just one tweet away from something very bad happening in our business. So just how much customer data is there really? Statista said in a recent report that 80%, listen to this, it's really, really interesting, 80% of the data that's available to us today has been produced in the last 2 years. And that in the coming years, we're going to have volumes of data and amounts of data that we can't even begin to fathom. And the kinds and types of data that we have are also very different, right? we have access now to some truly unique, enabling insights that have never been available before. We can listen to literally every single word that a customer is saying to us. We can record it, we have it, and not only can we listen to it and sort of understand what they were saying, but we can also understand what were they trying to do, what was their intent, and we can also understand how did they feel about it when they were saying it. And then the kind of things we can do with all of that data is truly unique today. I think it's astonishing, right? But back when I ran call centers back in the day, which was back in we had this sort of saying. We said, listen, you're either reading the newspaper, meaning you're looking at yesterday, or you're writing the story. Writing the story meaning that we're doing something in this very moment to impact what's happening. But today, not only with data can we look at the story and sort of see what happened yesterday, not only can we sort of impact and understand what's happening right now in our environment, but we have the ability to predict and influence future events. So I want to make a point today that we are in this extremely unique moment for the customer service industry, a moment that we've never been in before. It's not even been achievable before. We can see customers from an endless number of perspectives. So if you think about the analogy of having tornadoes, right? For tornadoes, we can sort of see that they're coming, right? And I think the same is true for us from a customer experience perspective. The question is what are we as practitioners going to do about it? And so we're recommending 3 focused areas of investment to work on preventing CX disasters so we can replicate the modern success of meteorology. And it's perspective, artificial intelligence, and sentiment and emotion. So first, just talking about perspective a bit. CX disasters can happen at absolutely any time. They can happen in a single customer journey. They can happen across a longitudinal arc of loyalty with a customer. And over the years, we've spent a lot of time building up channels and creating self-service and bots and all sorts of other technology. But even still, with all the data that's out there today, we find a unified customer view to be elusive at best. So, imagine going back to the radar example, right? Imagine that we had all that data, we had the colors, we knew where the tornado was, and we had all the data regarding wind and all those things. But just imagine you were missing one piece of data on that slide I showed earlier, and that missing piece of data was the map. Well, then you wouldn't know where anything is. So that one missing piece of data sort of kills that unified view, and it makes the rest of the data virtually useless. So how can we gain this kind of a unified view of our customers in today's environment? And I think it starts with our systems ecosystem. That's a tough thing to say because getting a unified systems ecosystem, there were some people talking about it earlier today, it's really, really difficult. It's extremely expensive, right? To try and unify all those systems, make them all talk to each other, and then make them even do things together can be really tough. You can get halfway down the road, and then the rest of those integrations are very expensive and hard. And if you want to work with a company that provides unified infrastructure, right? And there's some really good ones out there. Even that comes with some limitations that makes it very difficult to be successful. So we recommend that a really good start is thinking about your data environment and creating a unified data architecture. This is kind of a simpler way of pulling all your data together. In fact, I heard someone earlier, I forget who it was, I apologize, someone earlier was talking about actually doing this, taking all the data and just dumping it into a lake in the backside. And that's kind of the way that we would recommend that you start. And that is, gives you the ability to see into these individual moments along a customer journey. And it also gives us the ability to, see, again, this sort of longitudinal arc of where are customers going, what are customers saying, how do they feel, what is their intent in real time. And it also opens up and creates the sort of the baseline platform for us to do the second thing, and that is AI. So in my business, as the head of global analytics for Concentrix, we hear a lot of people come to us and say, hey, we want to deploy AI. But the truth is you can't really just sort of deploy AI. That's not how it works. That's not what AI is. AI is in and of itself, it's a tool or it's a technique, it's a capability that can augment other things in your business, other cool capabilities and solutions, and make them really come alive and make them incredibly intuitive and make them incredibly accurate and really improve other parts of our business. So think about like predicting purchasing behavior, right? You can bring AI to that, or a channel harmonization. You can bring AI to that. And when I think about a customer service disaster, it always boils down to a missed opportunity to meet or exceed a customer's expectations. I'm going to say that again. A customer service disaster is a missed opportunity to meet or exceed a customer's expectations. But with AI, predicting a future need or an intent or a customer transition is entirely possible in our world today. So I think in the future, just sort of meeting customer expectations is going to kind of be the baseline. We have the opportunity to really surprise somebody with something they did not expect from our brand. In fact, I think we can expect a lot in terms of the way AI can help. My wife and I were recently talking in the kitchen. It was after a conversation I had with Ed early one morning, and we were talking about Unbabble. And I was related in the conversation to my wife. I like to talk to my wife about things me and Ed talk about. Weird. That's okay. So anyway, so a minute later, she opens up her phone, and I think it was Amazon or something, and an Unbabble ad showed up at the bottom, right? So like our phones are listening to us, we all know that. Plenty of, again, whole nother conference for that. But that's AI in action, right? A little creepy, also kind of cool. Sometimes it kind of works. So in today's world, out of a million options, we can make the best possible choice for a customer. This is an entirely new frontier in CX. And I think it has the potential to help us to meet and exceed every single expectation that a customer has. So how do we get started in AI? Again, probably an entirely different conference, but I want to suggest a couple things. Number one, you can't really bring an existing team. Like you can't take your workforce management group and say, hey guys, start doing some stuff in AI. It doesn't exactly work that way, right? We recommend that you start with some kind of a governance framework. I've put one up on the screen here. There's a lot of great companies doing a lot of great thinking around how to bring AI into your organization. Because again, you can't just sort of point solution that thing. You've got to think a little bit more broadly. Next, you're going to need talent. You're going to need models, systems architecture and design. And I think most importantly, we need really smart business leaders like the people in the room today to think about where am I going to focus these efforts and how am I going to be successful using AI in my business. And the third thing is around sentiment and emotion. These are a huge focus for us right now. It's sort of uncharted territory, but I think they should be a really big focus for us because it's really kind of the core of loyalty, right? So I want to talk briefly about a company called Cogito. Anybody ever heard of Cogito? Couple? Wow, okay, good. I'm glad I get to introduce them to you. Fabulous company doing some really exciting things. They actually listen to conversations in real time between a customer and an agent, and they have a widget on the desktop that will coach the agent what to do next based on the sentiment, emotion, and intent of the customer. It's very, very cool stuff. And in the example of Humana, they've implemented this technology in Humana's contact centers, and there's this comparison between an agent who's taking calls that are sort of tough and a medic on the battlefield, right? And studies have shown that for a medic on the battlefield, after about 10 or 12 interventions, they start to lose empathy because they're just running through the mission and probably have some PTSD involved, et cetera. And so actually call center agents who are taking really difficult calls, and hey, you know, healthcare calls are life and death, aren't they? And so for a call center agent taking those calls, it can actually be very, very challenging for them. And after 10 or 12 of those, they can start to lose empathy. In this example, we see some really great results for how Cogito was able to help agents in real time to recognize that they were losing their empathy right there on the battlefield and then begin to bring that back. So we're working on all these three focus areas, solve all of our CX problems, probably not right away. Will it help prevent every single CX twister? Maybe, maybe not. But in the beginning, you might have the ability to at least get some situational awareness and to be able to respond more effectively to what's happening on the ground once you have this perspective. But next comes the ability to peer into the future and predict and possibly even prevent the tornadic activity that can be so incredibly devastating in our enterprises. Does all that sound pretty hard? Don't know where to start, not sure what to do? Well, one thing's for sure, we're going to need a path to get there. And I also want to suggest that it takes brains and heart and courage. Brains because we got to be thinking outside the box. We have to have a thoughtful plan. Heart because we need to maintain and have that same passion and obsession with our customers. And courage, which is a willingness to think outside the box, to really be contrarian in our thinking and be willing to take risks. And finally, I think we need something very special, and that is we've got to pull back the curtain on some unknown knowledge and wisdom. But my favorite line in this movie, which I love this movie in case you couldn't tell, my favorite line is at the very end when Glinda says to Dorothy, she says, Dorothy, you've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself. And so when we think about this moment that we're in right now, we have the tools and the capabilities to be able to predict and prevent CX disasters along the customer journey. All of that is already there. All the data is sitting there. All we have to do, just like we've done in the meteorology world, is pull it all together and then be able to use it effectively. And you don't have to go looking anywhere else but in your own backyard. And you guys know what I'm going to close with, right? There's no place like home. Thank you very much.